morning. I'm Pete Najarian. This is The Take on this Friday morning. What a wild ride this week was. It seems like we say that every week, but certainly with the Fed week, it does stand out. You look at Wednesday, we had that rip-roaring turn in the markets that ripped to the upside, an absolute unbelievable run to the upside for everything, it seemed. And then you come into Thursday. We have a little bit of follow-through with the Dow, up a couple hundred points early. That didn't last very long. That got sold off, and as that got sold off, you had the Dow, not terrible, but down about 30 points on the day. It turned towards that flattish area. On the other hand, you take a look at the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ was a little bit different. It was under pressure early. It started to accelerate. It certainly accelerated all the way through the close, down 2.5% on the day, or 380 points. So an incredible turn. And a lot of what was working in the previous day was exactly what was leading us to the downside. It was almost completely erasing everything from the same type of names, actually. So that was something that was definitely interesting. You had the volatility index with a decent range. It actually closed just above 20. So that was an interesting spot for it to be, but that's about where we are because of all the jitteriness going on in the markets right now. Makes a lot of sense. Just remember this. A 16 VIX gives you about a 1% move in the S&P each and every day. You get up towards 32, you're looking at about a 2% move each and every day. So are we getting 2% moves every day? Really not really. Take a look at what the Dow and the S&P have really been doing. But so that part of the reason why we are seeing the VIX where it is right now, if we continue this kind of movement, I'm going to figure that we will start to see a little bit more pumped into that volatility index like we are seeing, as a matter of fact, today. So getting back to yesterday, still a very strong day, 44.5 million contracts trading yesterday. Apple, once again, over 3 million contracts trading. You had Tesla with about 1.5 million. Obviously, that stock has, for the most part, been under pressure because of Elon selling some of his stock. Seems like that was one of the triggers that certainly at least fueled some of the fire for a lot of sellers to join in. Obviously, that stock's been under some pressure. NVIDIA, the only other name that actually was in the million contract club. So 44 million contracts. You've got about 5 million contracts trading with those three names, and then spread across very nicely across many different names outside of that. We had crude trading somewhere, call it between 71 and 72. You had the 10-year kind of holding on to that 1.4, but definitely well off 1.5. So that's something that's a little bit concerning. And today, certainly that is the trigger point of what we are seeing in the movement that we are seeing today. Yesterday, on the other hand, why was the NASDAQ getting hammered? Technology down almost 3%, 2.8% yesterday. You look at semiconductors down well over 4% yesterday. That's why when you see a move like this in the NASDAQ, those are the names that absolutely, and those are the specific sectors that absolutely were controlling what we were seeing. So the NASDAQ reversed. We had that big run higher on Wednesday. We had this complete screech of the tires, and then this big sell-off hammered on Thursday. But not everything was getting hit. As a matter of fact, financials started off very, very nice, finished very nice yesterday, finishing up about 1% or so. Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, you look at Travelers, Bank of America, Citi, Wells Fargo, all of those names having a pretty decent day. Some of the materials names as well having a pretty good day. And energy up nearly 1% yesterday. You had Conoco, you had Chevron, you had Pioneer, you had EOG, all performing to the upside. When you look at those downside leaders, it's the same names, it seems like, pile in to the downside and the upside. Yesterday to the downside, it was Adobe, it was CrowdStrike, it was Apple contributing along with Microsoft and Salesforce. Some of these very big names, that's why we were seeing the kind of movement that we were seeing. NVIDIA, you look at Tesla, you look at AMD, all of those under some serious pressure. Those non-discriminate selling of some of those names with those high multiples, no multiples, that was really what was under fire yesterday. But throw in the mega cap as well, as you just heard, Microsoft, Apple, some of those names definitely getting hammered to the downside. So the selling of tech continues today. Start off the day down about 150 points on the NASDAQ, down about 180 points on the Dow. The Dow has just been accelerating as we've gotten through this first hour of trade. Last I looked just before coming on, we were down about 550. Pretty significant run to the downside in the Dow. Not nearly as bad when you look over at what's going on with the NASDAQ, but the NASDAQ is negative. It's down triple digits, down 125 points. So there's no doubt that there's some selling there as well. But what's really getting hammered? It's financials. You take a look at financials, you take a look at energy, And those two, you can absolutely see what's going on. Energy down nearly 3%, but we know it doesn't have as big of an influence as the financials do. You look at those financials down almost a little bit over 2.5%. Started the day off about 1%, then accelerated and accelerated down 2.5%. Energy about the same thing, 1%, and then suddenly it's down nearly 3%. You've got crude trading in the 71s, but maybe now just a little bit below 71, the 10-year. That is the trigger point. Underneath 1.4, that started that selling and accelerated that selling that you're seeing in the financials. We've been talking about how tight that relationship has been between financials and the 10-year. Certainly seeing that play out over the last couple of sessions. So again, we're seeing some of those high multiples definitely under some pressure today. You look at names like Airbnb and you look at CrowdStrike, a little bit of DocuSign, Snowflake, those kinds of names are getting some of the hit that we are seeing in the NASDAQ right now. Technology was down just about 0.75%, down a little bit more as we've accelerated into the day, an hour or so, down about a little over 1.25% or something like that. Financials. So let's take a look a little bit deeper. Goldman Sachs down 4%. I'm looking at American Express. I'm looking at just downing. American Express down 3.5%. JP Morgan down about 3%. Visa down about 2.5%. You get the idea. They are just palms out selling right now when it comes to the financials. And throw in some of the industrials. Look at what's going on with Deere. Caterpillar definitely under some pressure. So you get the idea of where a lot of this selling is coming from and why we are seeing specifically the Dow under so much pressure early on in this first hour of trade. We all know things can change in a hurry. There is no doubt about that. And then, of course, you've got those high multiple names, including names like Rivian and others, where you've got some pressure certainly on some of these names also today. So two unusuals, and then I'll be getting ready for the halftime report as well, coming up here at noon Eastern time. Excited about that. Scott and the gang, should be a lot of fun. I'm sure they're going to hold me out to the fire about Rivian. I've got some changes that have gone on there, some of the mindset as well. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about a little bit about what Phil LeBeau's been talking about. Not everything was negative, but sometimes you've just got to cut your losses, or in some cases, if you're lucky enough, some gains, you just got to trim it or take it off. We'll be talking about that as well as we get into the halftime report. So two unusuals. I start with Kraft Heinz. This is a name that has hit time after time after time after time. Let's see if this time they are going to be correct about this name. It's had some movement, but it hasn't had enough movement. Probably not, but they just continue to pile in. So it's definitely worth talking about. Kraft Heinz trading 36.30. Got a buyer of 6,300 of the December 23rd expiring options. So you get 1 week for these. They're the 37 strike calls, 16 cents up to about 30 cents. So definitely continuing to come after this name day after day after day. We've seen a lot of activity here, and we've been talking about that activity as well, whether it's on the halftime report or here with the take. So second one I've got for you, SoFi, name that is trading near its lower end. It's off of the absolute lows, but on the lower end of the scale for this name, trading just underneath $14 a share. We got a buyer of 4,400 January 7th, so buying a little bit more time than what we have been seeing in unusual options, going out to January 7th expiring, so early parts of January, the 14th strike, right basically where the stock is trading. Those are going for about $1.12 up to $1.20, 4,400 of those calls as well. So a lot going on today. You can see it in the Dow. You see this major move to the downside, a lot of pressure. I wouldn't be surprised to see the NASDAQ start to catch up a little bit if this persists on this selling that we are seeing right now. We'll see how time flows through this, and keep an eye on that volatility index. It's crept up towards 23. It's been in the 22s. We'll see where we are in the next hour or two. It should be playing out pretty interestingly as we see some of these volumes start to accelerate and a lot more participation as we get closer to the noon hours. And then, of course, you've got the weekend as well. So got a lot going on today. It should be pretty interesting. I'll see you on the halftime report. Folks, have a great day of trading.